I didn't think about my grandmother's story for a long time. That's the strange part. It wasn't something I obsessed over. It wasn't something that scared me. It just stayed. Like a word you don't use anymore, but still recognize when you hear it. I didn't start thinking about it again until I was older, until I noticed how often people avoid places they can't explain. How pilots joke about losing signal in certain skies. How sailors still respect routes that don't make sense on modern charts. How researchers quietly stop publishing after asking the wrong questions. No one calls it fear. They call it coincidence. I started noticing how people react to quiet, how silence makes some people uncomfortable, how stillness gets labeled as emptiness, how anything that doesn't announce itself is assumed to be gone. That reminded me of her, of the way she used to pause before answering questions, of how she listened more than she spoke, of how she never corrected people who misunderstood her. She once told me that being unnoticed is a skill. Not everyone learns it. I also started noticing how pale skin is still talked about, as something fragile, something unfinished, something that needs explaining. No one ever considers that maybe it's the opposite, that maybe it's evidence of long adaptation, of generations learning how to live without excess, without exposure, without needing to be seen. That idea made me uncomfortable, which is usually how I know something matters. I remembered asking her once why the people beyond the ice didn't come back, didn't warn anyone, didn't share what they knew. She said something then that I didn't understand until much later. Because every time we introduce ourselves, she said, someone decides what we're allowed to be. I notice now how often history does that, how it erases quietly, how it rewrites gently, how it leaves behind just enough truth to sound fictional. I don't know if the people beyond the ice wall exist. I never did. But I know this. Some stories survive because they're true, and some survive because forgetting them would be dangerous. My grandmother never told me which kind hers was. She just told me to listen carefully, and not to assume that silence means absence.